Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the scene.
Yo, what the fuck is up, Warped Tour? The state of the scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. Sam here with Marcos.
We said, what the fuck is up, Warped Tour?
Yo, we said, what the fuck is up?
Warped Tour.
Oh, fuck. Are we supposed to... Hold on. You got anything to talk about?
I had a funny idea, which was...
Okay.
You know how it's always... Every podcast, yo, Sam, what have you been up to? What did you do this week? My question for you this week, Sam, what didn't you get to that you wanted to?
What didn't I get to that I wanted to? What didn't I...
I can name a couple of things right off the top of my head.
You go first. I'll think.
I would have liked to have started and ended the new Fallout show on Amazon. That's supposed to be really good.
Okay, I also wanted to do that.
You've seen more of that.
Tag me in,
But you've watched more than I have.
Yeah, I've seen
there's that.
3 episodes.
I would have liked to watch all 4 of the play-in games. I think there's more happening tonight. NBA playoffs have kind of started.
Okay, shit.
But they do play-ins because the teams that like sort of make it at the end have to battle each other.
You want me to put it on the corner TV? You can watch
there.
While we record?
It's already on there. What else did I want to do that I didn't get to this week?
What else did you want to do that you didn't get to this week?
I wanted to read more of a book I bought called Schrader's Chord. I got 10 pages in. You're gonna have to go week long.
You're gonna have to go ahead and explain what the fuck.
I don't know what it's about. I forgot. I bought it a while back.
Because you're only 10 pages in. You don't know.
Well,
what it's
I took the. I hate the sleeve that books come with for a hardcover. So I peel that bitch off and I just like put it away.
Sure.
But like you open this book up and there's no like summary of what's going on either of like the ends or anything.
That's interesting. There's not like an editor's note on the inside or anything like that.
No, because it's that cover that usually has it and I took that off. What else did I want to do? I don't know. Did you think of anything?
No, I can't think of a single. This is a fucking weird way to phrase
I thought it was
this question.
Good idea.
I don't.
This
because this week you just have a bunch of shit you did, but like
this is what
I live a fulfilling life, so this is not a good question for me.
Here's everything that I sacrificed so that I could prepare for this show and ultimately record it.
I wanted to see Bring Me the Horizon with support from Sleep Token Make Them Suffer and Dade in Australia this week, but bad news for me. I live in America, so I was fucked there.
No, I mean that's a valid one.
Was that valid?
I would have liked to have gone and seen a movie in the theater like Immaculate, which I didn't do. Like, you know what I mean?
Did you see Pop Crave tweet out? Oh, at the premiere of Abigail, our current or former cast members of Scream, Matthew Lillard, his boy, his other boy,
Skeet Ulrich. Put some fucking respect.
Skeet Ulrich. And I'm sitting there watching that video, and I'm like, is that motherfucker Spencer Shardis?
It is
from Ice Nine Kills, just fucking chatting it up with Matthew Lillard.
Tell me you're gonna flash this video on screen.
I'm not. You think I should?
Yeah.
All right.
I want to put your ass to work.
You can tune in
style.
At SOTS Podcast YT on YouTube if you want to find out if I flash that video. How's that for a sell? As always, every link you need in the description of this episode, including our socials, playlists, merch, and Discord. Subscribe to us on YouTube at SOTS Podcast YT. And leave a thumbs up if you're watching the video version of the podcast. Comment what you didn't get to this week. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave 5 stars. And if you want to support the show, consider becoming a patron for exclusive content, the ability to submit questions to the show, and producer credits on all of our video content. Patrons also receive access to bonus podcast SOTS Deluxe. On this week's Deluxe, we talk Dance Gavin Dance parting ways with Tilly and Pearson, and what this band's future could even look like moving forward, if at all, plus Under Oath's 20 Years of Chasing Safety tour announcement and upcoming new album. Also, on our YouTube channel, this week's Ranking the Scene exclusive show airing every Wednesday night. We bring albums to the ever-growing tier list from Under Oath, Bring Me the Horizon, and The Devil Wears Prada. Marcos, it's fucking Metalcore week on Ranking the Scene. Let's fucking go. It's also Metalcore week here on the show, Marcos, with Dated Discourse. Thank you, r/Metalcore, for providing us this gem from user no_Durian_6987. submitted to the show by Tori on Twitter.
6987.
That's correct, 6987. Kissing during shows?
It's normal, Sam. We do it all the time, right? You and me.
That's correct. You and I kissing at shows all the time. Went to maybe my second metalcore show last night, and I was on the barricade, and this woman right behind me seemed like she was trying to get a better view. She was maybe 5'0", so I made some space for her to get in front of me. There was a pit behind us, so I kind of tried to shield her from the dude shoving forward from it. We were both vibing and singing along to the songs together, and there were a couple of points where she put her hands on my hips and her hand on top of mine, but I wasn't too concerned with it. Anyways.
I wasn't too concerned.
She ended up trying to kiss me, and I wasn't sure how to react. So I just kind of backed away.
Yeah.
She kind of seemed kind of bummed and like disappeared in the crowd and felt bad because I felt like I should have noticed things going in that direction.
I like that you're saying this part from memory. This sounds like you. Did you post this?
It didn't feel pushy or anything. And there was a degree of attraction there, which may have affected the vibe I was giving, but I didn't really expect it. Does this kind of thing happen often at shows? Not sure if I'm overthinking the whole thing or not. Mark, you ever been in a position where you're going to get kissed at a show?
Insane sign off. The closest I ever got to kissing at a show were those free hugs at Warped.
That counts?
I don't know if I wanted to. How many people you kissed at a show, Sam?
0. Maidenless behavior, I'm sure.
Maidenless.
I'm not at a show to kiss. Like I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I'm busy. I'm watching a band. we can make out another day.
I could not imagine you also included this, but I believe on Twitter someone recently shared that a couple partook in some fingering at a Dayseeker show. Like full on, like I'm not talking one, I'm talking at least 2.
Oh my fucking god, bro!
During like one of their sets, and then like Rory Rodriguez quote tweeted, and he was just like,
"Finger me in the afterglow,
coming while you're dancing or some shit." Right.
That makes more sense. Yeah. And the best on my end.
And I guess where I'm coming from here is like I don't know. I don't go to shows and suddenly have like this massive horniness that needs to get like
sure
exercised from my body.
Not seeing the right bands, obviously.
I mean, problem. I've seen a lot like Dayseeker. I part of me could get it, but I could never do such a thing.
What do they call those foods you eat and they make you horny? What are they called? Tell me out here.
Blue Rhino.
They say metalcore is an aphrodisiac. That's what they say.
Is that what aphrodisiac?
Yeah, that's what aphrodisiac
really?
means. It means metalcore.
Fascinating. That'd be a cool song title.
French. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like, what's crazy is I'll go to a show and I'll leave, and then I'll see a post the next day. I'll be like, "Hey, did you guys see that guy got into a fight and they carted him out in the fucking like at a stretcher and everything, and they had to like spread everybody apart, and there was blood on the floor." And
in all fairness,
I miss the whole thing every fucking time. I'm like oblivious to everything that happens around me. I'm like laser focused. I'm locked in. A band's on stage, bro. I'm locked in.
You're not.
Band's on stage. I'm locked in.
You're not, because I can tell you how many times you and I have complained once we got into the car after a show about like the 2 cousins in front of us making out all set long.
That's true. I have seen other people making out at shows,
and it's always distracting.
So I've only ever lived it from like the peripheral. I've never actually experienced. No one's ever tried to make out with me at a show.
No one's asked for your hand.
Not a single person has ever put their hand on my head at a show and ever implied that they were interested in me ever. I don't know how to feel about it, honestly. I guess fine.
I mean,
at least I didn't fumble the bag like this fucking loser.
There's
awesome.
That. This is great.
There's that. Like, just
kind of backed away. Back away. She seemed kind of bummed and disappeared into the crowd. Crazy.
This is like every once in a while you get like one of those posts where like somebody realized they fumbled the bag after the point. They were like, "Yeah, so I was at the show and I was like checking out this band, and this girl comes up to me and she's like, 'Oh, what's your favorite song by them?' And you're like, I don't know. Go look at their top 5 fucking Spotify songs.
Right.
And then they never understand in the moment, and that's what happened to this guy. He just didn't understand in the moment. I haven't been there, but apparently other people have. been hit on at a metalcore show. I'm annoyed a little bit now that this hasn't happened to me.
I would warn.
I don't even want to read the comments because
if
the comments is
what
like
you wish for.
If the comments
Stop
are like
hitting my chest.
if the comments are all like, obviously, bro, this happens to everyone at shows. Like everybody gets it. Like someone tries to make out with you at a show all the time, and I'm just sitting there like I'm reading through every comment. I'm like.
This, so I realized this could never happen to us at the show.
Like, Marcus did put his hand on my shoulder one time, and that was, I suppose, out of the ordinary, and I didn't really overthink it.
This could never happen to us at the show.
Why is that?
Because we bury ourselves in our phones the moment these bands walk off stage.
That's a fair point.
And also, I've walked back to you after like hitting the bathroom during a show, and you don't look like an inviting person, Sam. You've got a bad aura.
I have bad presence. Yeah, that's correct. I'm
you got a bad energy, bro.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I'll give you that. Marcus, patreon.com/SOTS podcast. Not only if you want to support the show, but if you want to write in and ask us questions like Sam C, who wants to know, taking inspiration from the Bad Omens Deluxe, what song, released in 2024, would you like to hear a Bad Omens patch/reimagining of in a dream world? Of course. So Marcus, we're kind of like flipping the script here.
Understand this
We're flipping the script here. So we get all these bands who are like pitching in, and they're like, "Hey, let me see what I can do with a Bad Omen song." They're kind of saying, "Hey, what song that came out this year do you think Bad Omens could like fuck around with and like make something special out of?"
Man, I don't know if that is the question, but that's what
we're
going
to
go with.
That's how I interpret it.
That's not how I interpret it. What song do I want? Bad Omens to
Bad
cover,
Omens.
bro?
They get to like the Bad Omens. They get to. I feel like it's only right that they get to do this 1,000 Below song.
Running.
Since we'll get to it in the news.
That hill.
That's not a song from 2024.
Never.
It's not a song from 2024.
It's a cover of a cover.
It's not a song from 2024. I think Bad Omens should reimagine the new 1,000 Below song, since 1,000 Below was on the new Bad Omens album twice.
So you're talking Triforce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel it's only right. Like Bad Omens should get to fuck with their song if 1,000 Below gets to fuck with Bad Omen songs.
So it's a small pool, right? 2024. We're 4 months in, nearly 5.
That's a fairly decent sized pool. What the fuck has come out this year?
Pool?
What do I want to see? Bad Omens fucking redoes one of those Sum 41 songs off the last album. What are we working with here? What do we got here? Bad Omens Imminence collaboration.
Yeah, well I'm sold.
Is that it? Is that it right there? That would be pretty crazy.
Come what may.
Marcus Andrew W asks, do you think we're going to get Johnny Craig back in Dance Gavin Dance for Downtown Battle Mountain 3? Marcus, obviously, we'll get into that a little bit in the deluxe. Could it happen?
Stranger things have.
Not even Stranger Things. This literal exact thing has happened. Johnny Craig's been kicked out of this band, brought back for a sequel to Downtown Battle Mountain. This is actually like, if we're playing odds, like if they had like the Dance Gavin Dance, like fan duel.
The betting, yeah.
Yeah. I'd say this is probably like, there's like a 35% chance.
It's minus 500. And then I think it like...
Oh, I don't understand how betting odds work.
You put down $500 to break even. I don't know how they work either. But like, if you're in the negative, that's the most likely to happen. And then the farther away from that negative you get, the second, third likely, fourth likely, whatever.
Negative $85.
Plus 500, bro. Andrew Wells just fronts the band. Plus 1,000. Kurt Travis comes back somehow, some way.
Once again, we'll get into it in the deluxe, Marcus. Caillou asks, what nostalgic Christian bands did y'all grow up listening to? I feel like every millennial that is into the scene listened to Under Oath, but what's another one? I currently found Falling Up Again? Falling Up? I currently found Failing Up Again, and it hits just like 11-year-old me remembers. Marcus, have you ever heard of that fucking band in your whole life?
Is it
what?
That's not an Under Oath song.
No,
this is a band.
It's definitely not an Under Oath song. I'm assuming
no, never heard of that band. I was never huge on the Christian core stuff, but what I'll tell you, bro, one of my favorite anthems ever written in this scene.
What?
Chris wrote her between Amorosa and between like Moths to Flames. A Graceful.
A Graceful is Christian?
Yeah, bro. Go listen to I Am, which I think is the song title.
Christian as fuck?
I Am by A Graceful. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's fucking insanely Christian.
I mean, it was like the whole fucking Solid
A Graceful
State
had
run,
a ton of good shit, though, by the way.
I mean, Graceful was great. I'm not going to argue with you there. I mean, well, For Today, I guess I never really fucked with, but they would be a big one. I want to say Norma Jean was like Christian core. They definitely came up with those bands. Classic Crime, I want to say, was Christian. Fuck. I mean, I kind of like Relient K. I know that's not like metalcore, but they were mega Christian or whatever.
I mean, like, is that the most dead of the dying breeds?
What do you mean, like Relient K or Christian?
Christian core.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to sell in the year 2024 in the alternative scene. Like, I really don't think you're going to be able to like swing the Christian values.
So you're talking refresh time. You're talking Scientology core.
Okay, no, I'm thinking like agnostic core at this point. I'm thinking atheist core. I think that's the majority of what we're working with currently. They go on, by the way. Also, as someone who's done about as 180 as one can do from a faith standpoint, it is weird going back and listening to a Christian album / band again. I can feel that. I mean, I guess maybe you wouldn't like the lyrics don't have that same punch that they
Someday
might have
Came
had.
Suddenly was a Christian album.
The whole album was Christian?
Bro, all of those lyrics, if you go back and listen to right now, bro, it's like...
When they say, can I check my MySpace when I get there, that was about heaven?
Yeah.
Holy shit, bro. Mind blown. Kane asks, hi.
A lot of Patreon questions this week.
We got a few. So I'm a new listener, but have just recently caught up on all your episodes available on Apple Podcasts. I don't necessarily agree with all your thoughts. Pause. Every time someone says that, my immediate thing is like... Tell me.
You need to tell us like
what
where.
Don't you agree with?
Right. I need to know where on the spectrum you are as far as like.
Are you like, nah, you know, I didn't think that last Sleep Token album was that good.
Do you agree
like,
with our good takes or our bad takes?
Barely care for any of the bands they recommend. They're way off on all these albums. They for sure look like they've been kissed at a show. I'm not buying any of it. Kane continues, but it provokes thought at the very least, and I appreciate it. One thing I can't quite place. How old are you guys? When did you get into scene music or metalcore? Specifically, what is your musical journey history? Mark's musical journey history.
I'm 11. Okay.
Yep.
Let's establish that, right? 12 next year.
Yeah.
When did I get into scene music?
Yeah, that's the question.
2007? 8?
So that would have made you -4?
-4. Like all the classic shit. Lincoln, Paramore, My Chem, Lincoln again.
Yeah.
And then like you start discovering like your Bless the Falls and your Escape the Fates. And like for me, that's when something in my DNA changed permanently.
Okay.
My brain chemistry altered forever.
Okay. It's the metalcore that made you. A documentary coming to our YouTube channel later this year. I'm like
47.
35.
He's 47.
I've been listening to scene music for far too long. I guess I started with the obvious, like My Chemical Romance, and then from there, I remember somebody like recommended me The Used on a forum.
Absolute Punk?
No, it was like a PlayStation forum. And then at some point in my life,
the fucking trenches back in the day.
I got Kazaa. That's correct. And then I started downloading like Census Fail and Silverstein and It Dies Today albums for freebies. And As I Lay Dying,
LimeWire?
Another Christian band. Now that I think about it, yeah, Kazaa, LimeWire, fucking whatever.
Did you ever?
There was one called like Care Bear or some shit. I can't remember what it was.
I never noticed. Did you ever like fuck our computer up bad?
I would say probably the computer did not work as well as it. Like I set that computer, but like that computer had an uphill battle every time we fired it up. You know what I mean? Like there was a
5 years off
household
its
out there
life.
where that computer really could have excelled, but it wasn't ours. Like I put it through its fucking paces on the daily.
Right.
I would take it back Sunday.makedamnsure.mp3.98kupd.
Download 1%.
Accept. Yeah. Let's fucking go.
LimeWire was so fucking fun back in the day.
And now here we are. But always appreciate it. Love a new listener.
We
Love
have
a new
arrived.
Listener, so
yes,
welcome
Kane.
to the family, Ken. Let's review some albums, Marcos.
The Breakdown.
We're going to kick off with Replica by Dayseeker.
Suppress my childish fears, and if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave, 'cause your presence still lingers here, and it won't leave me alone.
It's the Orange County, California outfit's newest offering, a collection of stripped back versions of their most beloved material to date, dating back to like the last two albums for the most part. I'm going to go too much further. And even an Evanescence cover, Replica, released the 19th of April via Spine Farm Records. It consists of 10 tracks and is the first follow-up of any kind, any sort, to 2022's Dark Sun LP, which is a pretty popular one nowadays.
It's got to be their biggest album, right?
Feels that way.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
I mean, Sleep Talk had like some hits on it,
Sleep Talk,
streaming wise,
and you can tell because of its inclusion on this album as well. We didn't go all the way back on this, by the way. Not to like stop you right here. Like I know you said like the hottest Dayseeker songs in their career, and it's like the last two albums.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Okay. We didn't go back and like get the fucking what's that one song called with Garrett Russell from Silent Planet?
Fuck
the
me.
Sleeping, the sea,
the Beneath the Sea, Yesterday.
Sleeps. Yeah.
Song I would have loved to, and the reason you didn't is because they wouldn't really lend themselves too much to it. Dayseeker used to be heavier.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
I would have loved like any nod to a song like the
But
Nail in the
nasally
Coffin.
as fucking r/metalcore member. This band used to be heavy, you know.
Some quick bullet points included in the press release that we got that I wanted to cover.
Mm-hmm.
One particular gig unassumingly set the stage for Replica. In 2022, the band's gear overheated at, wait for it, Blue Ridge Rock Festival, the most cursed festival there ever was. Thinking on his feet, Rory, that last bit was mine. Rory, thinking on his feet, grabbed an acoustic guitar from the van, plugged in, and performed Without Me, a single off of Dark Sun. Soon he had pulled together a 5-song set on the fly as thousands of fans flocked to that stage at Blue Ridge. In quotes here from Rory, I felt like we let people down, but I had so many friends say, everyone will remember the day your equipment stopped working and you still played the set as a really special moment, he recalls. It never felt natural for our songs. We usually will do extra tracks for a deluxe version or re-release, but we decided to commit to an entire acoustic album this time. I really wanted to include that last bit because to me it sounds like this, with the release of Replica, is the shuttering of the Dark Sun era. Outside of like touring obligations.
Yeah, this is not Dark Sun Deluxe because we got this instead. So you're right. This is the close of a chapter. That makes sense.
And last thing to note here, it was recorded with longtime collaborator and producer Dan Bronstein.
All right, so let's just get it out of the way. I've said this from day one, bro. Rory Rodriguez, the Amy Lee of metalcore.
So naturally, we cover an Evanescence song.
This would be technically the only song that is semi-new on here, even though it's a cover, right? Yeah. And I really like its inclusion because it feels like... I guess it feels special because everything else is like an acoustic song, and then we got like one cover that's like completely out of the blue. And I think it works incredibly well. It almost works too well. It's almost too perfect how well Rory sounds on that song. And then everything else on here, it's like, what do you even fucking say at this point?
I mean, pause. I think it makes perfect sense at that point to then choose this song to feature here. I think I wouldn't necessarily say Evanescence and Dayseeker are a lot alike, but it's one of those things where
they're a lot alike.
I mean, if if the band records this song and they think to themselves like, hey, we like this, we're going to include it. Like, yeah, it's whatever. Right. Like,
no, what I mean to say is that like everything on here is an acoustic song, and then we get like one last track that's also acoustic, but it's like a cover that we haven't heard this band perform before ever. And like quietly, it ends up feeling like almost like the most special track on here because it feels like a unique +1.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, where I'd like to begin is just by sort of acknowledging this whole project as refreshing.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because it's not marketed as anything spectacular in the sense of like, oh, these are like, it's hard to explain, but like every single renditions album, they can just not call a song acoustic.
Right. We'll get into a band who got really fancy with their naming conventions.
Not that one. That's not the band I'm throwing shade at, of course. But
yeah, but I know what you mean. It's like
just getting a straightforward. Hey, this is a collection of acoustic songs.
Sleep Talk, Undressed, Sleep Talk, Re-envision.
Right. Like, every song undressed, revised, reworked. Fucking deconstructed.
Sleep Talk nighttime edition.
Yeah, like I just appreciate that outright. Like let's not try to sell this as more than what it is, because realistically this album is a great listen because of that simplicity, right?
Yes, but in reality, this album is a great listen because Rory Rodriguez is like one of the most insane vocal talents in this scene. I think the greatest example of that for me personally on here is Afterglow, where I think it's just his vocal delivery is enough to pull like an intense emotional reaction out of me, like an intense emotional reaction to me. I have like the same reaction in listening to Afterglow that I do like the like when you hear Phil Collins sing in like the Tarzan movie.
It's the most we've talked about Phil Collins all year.
and like
3 separate references.
You're like experiencing the most emotion in your whole life. It's like bubbling to the surface. Like Rory Rodriguez is like capable with his voice of pulling like this same like extreme deep emotion out of me. I think that there are some songs on here, specifically Without Me, that are almost like not explicitly that different from the original. Like it's almost just like a doubling down on how good Rory was to begin with. You know what I mean?
That song specifically almost has to be like, we just looked at what we performed at Blue Ridge and just pasted it onto the album essentially, right?
Yeah. Like the crowd responded well to this one, but also like Without Me is probably one of my favorite Dayseeker songs. So it's like, I'm glad it is included on here. Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I'm glad in general that this doesn't just span Dark Sun material. As cool as all that material is, but like getting to relive again more songs off of what I think is like some of the most important songs in this band's discography, their catalog, in tracks like Drunk, Burial Plot, Sleep Talk, giving those songs another sort of breathing even more life into them, I think was appreciated.
Yeah, I agree completely. I like that we didn't set like an unnecessary like line in the sand that we couldn't cross. Like, yeah, sure, let's just go grab a few songs from another album that people love. It's not like anyone's going to be disappointed that Sleep Talk's on this fucking album. Right. Like, it's one of our most beloved tracks. But I really do think like the Without Me and the Crying While You're Dancing from Dark Sun are so like primed to be like these really strong emotional vocal deliveries, and they easily transition into acoustic songs because they were so perfect as what they were to begin with, and they're very similar. So maybe we take a little bit of the electronics out and a little bit of like the glitz and the glamour off of them, but they're like stylistically they're very similar songs to me than as they were in the original versions.
Yeah.
And I don't think that as a negative. I think they kind of just like, they continue to just sort of work really well for that reason. Marcus, I guess I would say that the other sort of like standout aspect of this is that we have 3 features in Amber De La Rosa on Without Me, Lucas Woodland of Holding Absence on Starving to Be Empty, Amber De La Rosa of Roxy, and then Caleb Shomo of Beartooth on Burial Plot.
Yeah, I think these are all very positive highlights.
You know what I really like about them is that they they don't just feel there for the namesake of being able to attach another brand to help the song sort of like pop on a playlist. Like they really do feel like a valued team member, a very necessary addition to this song. Like I think each individual one of them really brings out more to the track than was there originally. I just think like Caleb Shomo and how incredible they are as a feature, like almost inexplicably incredible as a feature. They catch me off guard every time they show up in another band's song. Lucas Woodland, when they're harmonizing with Rory a little later in Starving to Be Empty, is absolutely incredible. And Amber De La Rosa, you just sort of like sit there and listen to them and you're like, oh, this is arguably another talent that's probably on that Rory level, and I just haven't like taken enough time to go check
dived into
work.
Roxy enough.
Yeah.
Man, just real quick, a little bit more love I wanted to give to Starving to Be Empty with Lucas Woodland from Holding Absence, because that song is just a knockout with that feature. Just two of the absolute best in this game. And again, like, I do recognize these other featured artists are among these two.
But if you had to pick a favorite, that would be it.
Man, it's just so natural. It sounds so natural.
That's fair.
Having Lucas there.
I think walking away from this, I'd definitely say that the Afterglow acoustic track is my favorite from the entirety of the album.
I think the one that I don't know why it connected with me so much. Like, I connect with all these songs, right? But the one that really put me on my ass essentially was Drunk. Just something about that acoustic is nuts.
Okay.
And I think that this whole project is wonderful, truly.
Are you excited at the idea that we've closed this chapter and now we've opened up the door for what will presumably be new material from Dayseeker that we've never heard before?
A little bit, for sure.
The next step after Dark Sun, whatever that may be.
How could you not be?
Fair question.
One promising cover.
You're right. It was
up the floodgates.
It was rhetorical.
More covers, Dayseeker.
What else did we listen to this week?
Coup de Grace by See You Space Cowboy. This is the San Diego, California outfit's third studio album, released the 19th of April via Pure Noise Records. Coup de Grace. I feel like I'm going to pronounce it 9 different ways.
I like the coup de grace. I think it's right there.
Right. It consists of 12 tracks and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's The Romance of Affliction LP. Some bullets, of course, from the press release. Every single song See You Space Cowboy have released since forming in 2016 have been deeply rooted in the life experience and trauma of frontwoman Connie Sarbosa. It's one of the things that makes the San Diego band's music so compelling and visceral, because those oftentimes harrowing experiences flow through its veins. Whether that's existential anguish, substance addiction, or suicidal ideation and attempts, Sarbosa has never been afraid to detail her pain and torment in excruciating detail. Pretty fucking heavy right off the bat.
Yeah.
Coup de Grace is no exception to that rule. Unlike the 2 records that came before it, which were unadulterated, no holds barred accounts of her life at the time, Coup de Grace takes a different approach to its lyrics. Rather than Sarbosa bearing her most private and innermost thoughts for all to hear on these 12 songs, they are funneled through the lives of fictional characters within a noir-inspired world of the singer's invention. Really cool. We have a little bit more detail there. If I could let go a little bit in terms of writing, lyrics, she says, and let it be a group effort, since there was this unified story and everything wasn't coming directly from me and my experiences. That was actually easier because I didn't feel like I had to accurately reflect my pain. They were looser concepts that a lot of people deal with. Of course, we put ourselves into these songs. I'm not going to write about something that's not happening to me, but it allowed for a lot more symbolism rather than being. This is me. This is what I've dealt with. It's a lot of fucked up stories about love mixed in with the themes that a lot of great records, whether it be emo or hardcore, were written about finding somewhere to belong without just singing about unity and shit like that. And it was a lot more fun to create an album that wasn't digging within myself, to be able to focus more on the visuals and the creativity. Serving as the narrator throughout is St. Louis, yes.
Yes, St. Louis. Yes.
Family Guy moment. Bass singer Iris.exe. I wanted to just shout that out because they are present throughout a lot of moments on this album. And additionally, this album was recorded by Matt Squire, who we've talked about a lot on the show, of course. And that's where we should start, is with the Iris.exe feature, because again, Iris is all over this. Two like written out features, and then like interspersed, especially like at the very end with Curtain Call. I think Iris is the last voice we hear with the adieu, like bidding us farewell at the very end of this record. So it has like this very clear beginning, middle, end that I think is really neat.
I think it's almost fair to say that Iris.exe exists as like the linchpin that holds this entire album together. Like,
I'm going to take it one step further. There's a fucking strong argument after this guest feature here that Iris.exe should be in this band permanently. Like, what are we doing? And that's coming as a fan of See You Space Cowboy since the start, or since with the debut album or the double album, whatever you want to call it.
It is the collaboration that happens on this album is critical to the success of this record. It really does take it from just being an album to being a full-on experience. Iris.exe's voice is so perfectly suited to this noir narrative that they've built throughout the course of this record. And
Smoky Club, Baton Rouge, right? All that stuff was in the presser too.
It works exceptionally well. It's just like, I was absolutely floored by it, but I shouldn't be terribly surprised, because I think every time Iris.exe's name pops up in something, it's become practically a guarantee that it's going to end up being one of the best things that I'm going to hear, whether it be on an individual album or a song.
We're batting, like, I don't know baseball terms, but like I imagine 1,000 is good.
We're batting good right now.
We're batting guys. So fucking good. We're eating, Sam.
We are batting good.
We're eating. And also, I mean, everything's integral to this album, right? Like, there's not a single moment that's wasted. Your Kim Dracula feature, your Courtney LaPlante feature, your feature from, I believe Nothing Nowhere is also on this album.
Nothing Nowhere is on this album.
All of them fucking critical to the overall experience. And I did want to take a moment to talk about how much I think the change in approach to the writing, I think, complements this album and the components of which See You Space Cowboy are made out of.
You're saying the pivot to like a more metaphorical approach that is more the rooted in.
I think the band comes out strong. The band comes out stronger for it. Yes, I like the. I don't know this. They mentioned like unified earlier. I think this sounds like a more unified See You Space Cowboy.
You know, it's interesting. I'm actually going to push back a little bit. I kind of feel like the other features on this album that aren't Iris.exe are significantly less necessary, and I think they feel a bit lost in the shadow of the rest of this band's vocal performance. But I would probably say explicitly Connie's voice is, it's such a trump card in what they're doing that it's the reason that I think See You Space Cowboy kind of runs circles around all of the other bands that are kind of trying to resurrect this style of post-hardcore from like the mid to early 2000s, I guess. Where I just think nobody has a delivery that is that unique. And I think that all the other members in this band, who I think it's quite literally all the other members, chime in with vocals, do such an extraordinarily good job of complimenting Connie that the vocal features on here don't really bring an element that I think helped lift any of the songs that they were on outside of Iris.
Disagree with Kim Dracula for sure.
I don't dislike them. I just, on paper, I saw the features on this album, and, I started rubbing my hands. I was, all right, this is going to be fun.
Void Eternal last year.
Yeah, exactly. And then once I was finished with this, I really didn't leave any of the songs that they were featured on thinking about them in the same capacity that I continued to be mesmerized by Connie's performance. That's how I felt.
Outside of the Iris
it's not
feature.
that I think they were bad. I just didn't feel the necessary in any of them. The Iris feature is like a completely different thing because they're like, they're utilized in a way that is so like dramatically different than all three other vocalists. I just didn't feel like,
I don't know if I agree here.
Okay, that's why I said this is where we disagree.
Kim and Courtney, I think Nothing Nowhere is probably where I'd give you a little bit of like, because I think Nothing Nowhere comes in and it's just like a repeated chorus type deal for the guest vocal. And like, I could see why that's not really quite as necessary, but I think that especially Kim Dracula, you can't replicate what they bring to the table on that feature, on that song, Lubricant Like Kerosene. But I think I do agree, yes, that like one of the biggest appeals for this band for me personally is Connie, but it extends past that, and it's honestly the tri-vocal trifecta of Connie, Ethan, Sarbosa, and then Taylor as well. The main three, right? The critical three, and it's this trading off at all times of vocal duties that is consistently what is keeping me on the edge of my seat personally.
You know why it works so well though? Because I think what it helps, what having the three vocalists helps accomplish is that it limits Connie in a way where their vocal delivery never feels overwrought throughout the record. It always feels somehow like a special occasion every time it comes up. And it's that barter, that back and forth, and probably the little bit of the contrast between them that seems to work well, but specifically it's almost like limiting Connie in some capacity helps make them seem like an even more special element throughout this record. Like that vocal delivery, it's almost like it's almost like reserved a little bit so that it never feels overplayed. If that makes sense.
It does. I'll definitely agree.
Like they dole it out in a way that it's like it's exactly the serotonin boost every single time I get it. I know. I did it with
you sound
both
like
words.
me over there.
I did it with both words, which is impressive.
No, I'm right there with you. But yeah, I think ultimately where I come at this record from is like, I think everything that SeeYouSpaceCowboy are known for doing, they improved at, and the cohesiveness overall of this record, because it's more of like a conceptual thing, or it has a clearer conceptual beginning, middle, end, or beginning. Yeah, right.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
So late.
Have we become delirious? What is happening? Like 30 minutes into this podcast.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I really enjoyed my time with that. This is by far my favorite SeeYouSpaceCowboy album. I was like on the edge of my seat from beginning to end in a way that like my attention would at times on the last couple of records definitely waver, I guess.
I agree. I would say this is a much stronger effort. There's a lot of little things I really enjoyed throughout this. Like, I don't think it needs to be said, but I think we're all in agreement that like clapping in a post-hardcore song is just like one of the most euphoric experiences every single time it fucking happens. And it happens twice on this fucking record.
Like as a transition between songs, between Respite into silhouettes is just masterful. Allow us to set the scene figuratively and literally doing so, like setting the tone on this record with like the saxophone and this weird, like, you know, club energy to just all of it is, the atmosphere
it's incredibly well
is
done. Like
fucking
the whole thing,
unmatched.
You know, maybe there's a little bit of credit here to like Matt Squire too. Like he I think, you know, there's probably credit there to helping navigate and sort of like compose this record in a way that it really flows very naturally. I think there's a lot of little sort of, I don't want to call them nostalgia bait, but almost like this tribute post-hardcore era style that is found throughout this record that works really well. I think it's like even in little lyrical pieces, like not just the poetry of the lyrics, but sometimes in like specific lines. Like when we're talking about a city in flames, like my mind is immediately flashing to like bands of that era, and I'm like I can't hear City in Flames and not think of like Scary Kids Scaring Kids and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think those little things put in there are meant to trigger like certain like nostalgic memories in your mind. And I also think, you know, I was talking about how reserved this band can be utilizing Connie but sort of trading it off with the vocalist. I also think that I came into this album anticipating a certain level of heavier style of music that was found on their last couple records, but I think it's reeled in a lot more here, so that when it hits, I think it's significantly more effective. But not only that, I think when this band writes a breakdown in general, it feels like it has a lot more purpose, and it has a much stronger like raw intensity to it than I get from a lot of you know, we'll say the modern metalcore ilk nowadays. So like that breakdown in Chewing the Scenery, for example, hits 10 times harder than the vast majority of breakdowns I've heard this year from bands who like consider that their bread and butter. And I think that is impressive in and of itself, that, you know, even when this band feels like they're playing outside of what they've, you know, written on paper they'll be delivering throughout this album, they're still doing it better than many other bands are able. They just seem like an incredible talent from top to bottom. So no surprise that this album was a treat. I really enjoy their style, and I think Sasscore is here to stay.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I cannot shake listening to this band.
But you can shake while listening to this band. You shake that ass, am I right?
Well, I was going to say, like I hear Alisana in so much of what SeeYouSpaceCowboy is, and I mean that as a full compliment, because that's like one of my favorite bands of all time, and like I feel like they had a similar sass, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They had a similar theatricality to them. So like, I don't know, I hear bands like SeeYouSpaceCowboy today, and instantly it's nostalgic for me to a time where like that music was shaping me.
They capture the era immaculately.
We move on, of course, to Searching for Solace by The Ghost Inside.
It's a vicious cycle, got me spinning in a downwards spiral. Vicious cycle, inescapable paranoia. On every side.
This is the El Segundo California outfit's 6th studio album, released the 19th of April via Epitaph Records. Searching for Solace consists of 11 tracks and is a much anticipated follow-up to 2020's emotional self-titled LP, which saw the band complete their triumphant return following a tragic accident in 2015, where the band's bus collided with a tractor trailer, resulting in the unfortunate death of both drivers, many members of the band and its touring crew being hospitalized in critical condition, and the band's drummer, Andrew, unfortunately losing a limb as well. The band's road to recovery and ramp up in activity has been well documented. We covered a lot of it on this show. It continues to be inspiring to see how this band has clawed back and now maintain a top spot within our scene in the face of all of that adversity that they had to overcome in the immediate aftermath of that aforementioned accident. From the presser here, 9 years removed from that horrific bus crash that forever changed the trajectory of this band, they learned an esoteric truth about tranquility. What the fuck is that word, Sam?
Axiom? You don't know Axiom, bro?
Is that just how you say
don't know
it?
Axiom? That's how you say
As
Axiom,
the axiom says, it's the journey, not the destination, a theme explored throughout searching for solace. People always ask me how I remain positive, vocalist Vigil muses. I'm realizing now that there's never really a time where you reach that point of happiness. It's a constant journey. I know that life is hills and valleys. You must be willing to embrace new things, stand up for yourself, and adapt, because the goalposts just move further away. The search for solace never ends, which I thought was a pretty cool way to sort of get the message across on this album. Just like that replica album from Dayseeker, this one was also produced, I believe, by Dan Bronstein. Fairly certain. He's got writing credits all over it.
What, if anything, do you remember about 2020 LP that the band returned on? I think it was self-titled.
I remember Aftermath, like being the very first single off of that was their return single, right?
Right, which felt powerful in the nature that it was their return single. Right?
And I think it was powerful emotionally for sure as well. And granted, like they also went on location where the crash initially occurred to film a music video, so it sort of pushed it to its extremes naturally. But outside of that, I don't really remember too much. I think a cool little Easter egg that's, I mean, I guess it's not really hidden or anything, but like I believe the album art is just a collage of everybody's Ghost Inside symbol tattooed on them, like the logo.
That's neat.
I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
So going into this, we had a handful of singles. It was, I believe, Death Grip, Split, and Wash It Away. This is probably the strongest I'd ever felt going into a album from the Ghost Inside. Like, remove the strong emotional impact of the band returning with that last album.
Yeah.
This, based on the material, was the closest I'd ever felt that the Ghost Inside was sort of like really kind of like speaking to me.
Feeling those singles?
And yeah, the style that the music that I enjoy, like the style of metalcore that I enjoy. Ultimately, I walk away from this album probably feeling that it's a little bit more predictable than I thought it was going to be. Overall, it is its singles extrapolated out across 11 songs. It is an extremely polished modern metalcore record. It doesn't really take a lot of swings. It's reeled in a sense that this band knows exactly what style of music they want to make. They set out and they hit all those notes. And I guess I wouldn't levy that as like a strong criticism, because I think that they do this style of modern metalcore very well. I would probably say this is my favorite album from the Ghost Inside, even if it's one that I walked away from feeling slightly underwhelmed, in that while it is sort of positive and uplifting, it's all of those things in very broad strokes. It lacks a lot of like minutia and detail that I can really attach myself to. It's very general in its emotions. These are criticisms that I have levied against a lot of modern metalcore bands who they write in a style that's meant to be able to attach itself to everyone without really giving it sort of like a deep personal undercurrent that I can chew on in any capacity past like the surface level.
Right. And to clarify, it's not that you're looking for this band to make it so personal that it then becomes unrelatable. You just want a stronger window into what it is they're actually
I need
pulling
something
from
within the writing style that I feel like I can really attribute to this band, or something that is being said that feels a bit more unique. I need something probably written that stands out more as being from this band. These are styles of songs that I feel like you can really attach to a lot of names in the modern metalcore scene, and presented by any one of these bands, I wouldn't bat an eye. But I think maybe part of the reason that I feel a little underwhelmed by this is because I know the Ghost Inside have had such immense trials and tribulations to reach this point that it makes a lot of sense that this would be sort of like a positive laced metalcore album. I just wish it had a little bit more of the Ghost Inside in the writing than it does. It's too broad for me. It really is. Like, I like the vibes, but there's not a lot here to chew on or talk to or break apart and you know, really try to like dive into. It's very surface level, you know.
Yeah, and for me that is exactly why it just does not click in any capacity. It's really predictable. Like once it doesn't click in those same ways that you described, then I start to look at it with a more critical eye, and I'm like, well, that's a predictable verse or chorus or breakdown, and
they're not necessarily bad melodies or bad breakdowns. They just they don't have a lot of personality to them. They feel a bit flat in that sense.
So personally, I will acknowledge that these songs are all fine. There's just absolutely nothing here for me is what I walk away from Searching for Solace with. Like, there's just like, I'm good. I'm all set. I listened to this album a couple of times, and I don't expect to really spend much more time with it at all this year. And like you said, that's not taking away from anything that this band has accomplished, will go on to accomplish. I'll still pay attention to the Ghost Inside, and granted, I liked those singles probably more than I've liked their singles in the past, but there's nothing that the Ghost Inside personally here is giving me that I'm not getting from other bands in this scene that I prefer.
Yeah, and like, again, to build upon it a little more, I think it's because I know the Ghost Inside and I know their story. I feel like there's much more here to say that just isn't being said, which makes it feel a little bit like, you know, when this style of writing is essentially like when you write for everyone, you kind of like write for no one. And
in the process, you lose people like you and me.
I know you can like kind of go back here and say, well, hey, you know, like, hey, if you go look at a song like Death Grip, you know, you could explain all of the things that song is about. I just don't feel like a lot of it is really detailed in any of the lyricism. It's just like, feels as if it's meant to, like, again, be able to be embraced by people who have had similar emotional experiences, even if they're completely different in exactly how they played out, and thus they can, you know, apply it to their lives. But yes, again, for you and I sort of walk away from the record feeling left still a little hungry for something that just isn't here for me to you know, consume.
Yeah, one of those examples of, again, personally, you hear it once, you know what it's all about. Like there's every song on here, I feel like I got to the 2-minute mark and I fully grasped what it was and what it was trying to accomplish, and I was ready to, at that point, just move on to the next track. And that's not what I'm really looking for in an album experience.
So, you know, with that being said, it's kind of like you sort of know what you're in for with this one, you know, based on kind of what we're saying. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're just looking for those hooks with the breakdowns peppered in throughout, I don't think you'll be overtly disappointed in this. I just, you know, would level set expectations and say we're not really going to go beyond that in any capacity. If
the Ghost Inside have already been your, you know, cup of tea, this one's steaming hot. Come get it. But I don't really like tea that much.
Marcus, we listened to one last album.
Trust Ceremony by Jhariah.
I can take another day.
This is the New York artist's second studio album, independently released on the 19th of April. Trust Ceremony consists of 13 tracks and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's debut LP, A Beginner's Guide to Faking Your Death. From the press release, Sam. And RIYL.
This is so good. This is so good. so Marcus, yourself. RIYL represents...
Recommend it if you like. My Chemical Romance, Panic at the Disco, Dua Lipa, Lil Nas X, Billie Eilish, 100 Gex, Glass Beach, Tech Nine, System of a Down.
Okay, so suffice to say, incredible range.
Incredible range. Insane. You'd be hard pressed to find any other artist that we discuss on this show that can offer up an RIYL with that much range and pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Run the gamut of music.
And you get it here from Jhariah. Trust Ceremony is exactly as the title states, a celebration. I wrote it over the course of 5 years as a sort of thesis focused on trust, attempting to unpack what that word means to me. What it means to have it, to lose it, to want it, or to give it. It's equal parts me trying to process my life thus far and creating aspirations for the future. Risk felt important to be the first single because it's at the forefront of what I want this record to say. I need more than for trust to act as a blanket that keeps me safe. I want to wield it like a weapon that will forge my path. Fucking bars here. The idea behind following up with Eat Your Friends, which features ping shifts, and Pin Eye, was to explore the idea from completely different angles and sort of create these sonic boundaries for an otherwise pretty boundless record. And I cannot emphasize how much we continue to hit the nail on the head here. This record is absolutely boundless. Last sentence here from the presser. Everything, and I mean everything up until right now, has been setting the stage for everyone to expect the unexpected. And I think we deliver on that. This album is all over the place in the best way imaginable.
There's simply nothing like this. There is absolutely no other artist who's doing it like Jhariah right now. Like, I think when it comes to just like the level of artistic talent, the level of like variety, the richness of possibility that you can find over the course of an album, Jhariah delivers it. Like, there's something...
The scope and the execution is fucking next to none.
Mm-hmm. Like I try to, in my mind, constantly sort of like formulate the best way to like describe this, and you always feel like you're a word short or a comparison like shy of really capturing exactly what this experience is. You know, early on you kind of like, you get this sort of like you get this feel of like this big top, like bombastic, like carnival-esque, but like meets 1950s like swinging jazz club sort of like style all smashed into one, like it feels like Pretty Odd on coke, and there were like deeper cut bands that I think also kind of match this sort of like energy. You know, I think about bands like the Matches or Forgive Durden.
I love that poll.
Yeah, or We Are the Fury. All bands who early on sort of like came up in sort of the Panic at the Disco era, who also had like these like certain like flashes of like 1950s styled like dance club music. It's like the cabaret, but it's almost too big for it. It's so explosive and inventive, and like an artist, like, we'll sit here all day and we'll talk about all these different artists. Oh my God, we have so much respect for them. Oh, they're so brilliant. There's so much. And then you look at it like an artist, Jhariah, and it's just like one guy on his own playing upward of like 17 instruments, writing 15 different genres of music, sometimes in the course of like a singular song. and making it all feel cohesive throughout the entirety of an album. And it's like your mind is just blown. Like there's talent and then there's Jhariah. Like they're almost not comparable.
They're fucking
Two different
talented,
spectrums.
Especially in the context that Jhariah is 22 years old.
Yeah, which would then mean like his last album like came out when he was 19 and he wrote it when he was like 18, which, you know, to be fair, like that's not
Jhariah's been writing about like, trust since they were 17, Sam.
Which I don't know. There's probably like a lot of deeper like meaning to pull from that. If there was a song on here that really stood out for me personally, I think it's Control Baby. There's something about it that is just like, it feels slightly more serious, slightly more intense. Like there's like something slightly unnerving underneath the surface with that song, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's while everything else feels like fucking big, fun, exciting, like something about this feels like there's an undercurrent of something that's slightly more serious or unsettling that makes that song significantly more interesting than me.
Russian Doll has like a slightly similar dark energy to me, and I think that song in specific is definitely where I hear like a My Chemical Romance for sure. I mean, that song's begging for a Gerard Way feature.
Think Black Parade era, like Jhariah feels like they're attempting something that's maybe not as like narratively easy to interpret or on the surface as like obvious as like the story the Black Parade is telling, but like in its presentation I feel like it is going for something that is equally as larger than life as what the Black Parade is thinking of trying or like it did accomplish.
Yeah, no, 100%. This one's fucking impressive. I think that like sometimes the scope like reaches a little far past, like I think the production is where you get some of your boundaries on this record, but that's like the smallest of critiques. I think removed from that, I really did truly have an amazing time with this record.
I like the Pink Shift feature. I think Eat Your Friends is probably one of the liveliest tracks on this album. And if you haven't, go watch the music video for that, because I think it really helps sell that song in particular.
For sure.
But I to sort of build upon that further, like even go watch the music videos for Pin Eye and Risk Risk Risk, just to see that Jhariah does not stop with their talent of just being a musician, but that goes on to them be like an artistic force in their direction of their music videos as well. It's just sort of like mind blowing when you kind of like stumble upon a talent like this, who's just sort of like, can't be like bottled or contained, like just like completely overflowing with like ideas.
I know in the RIYL, like Panic at the Disco is mentioned, of course, but
right,
like
My Chem is like a given.
Well, no, I have a point I'm making here.
Go ahead.
In that one that's not, that I think it's a little closer to than a Panic at the Disco nowadays is I Don't Know How But They Found Me, because this record is essentially just fucking, it's Gloom Division, which dropped this year, and it's that on acid.
100%. And Gloom Division in some capacity feels like building upon blocks that like Panic at the Disco helped set the stage for like years ago, right?
The foundation Yuri destroyed. Building back up. I was super happy with this, and I really
this is a fucking blast. Like if you're always thinking to yourself, like I want to truly be like on the precipice. I want to be at the forefront of having known an artist that is like truly alternative and no one knows about, but they like really speak to like the breadth of experimentation and like ideas that can come from this scene. Like go get in early on Jhariah and be there and be able to say like, oh, you don't know what the alternative, like you think you understand what the alternative scene has to offer, and then here's where I'm going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
Mark's getting into the news, brought as always to everyone by Shibori Threads, the clothing label of the alternative music scene.
The news.
Bad Omens have released new single The Drain in collaboration with Health and Swarm.
I can't be safe. Reaching for the life way through. Watching as it circles in the dirt.
The band also announced Concrete Jungle, the OST, a 26-track deluxe album featuring new songs, as well as reimaginings, remixes, and acoustic versions of older tracks. The album will also include collaborations with Wargasm, Era, Bob Villain, Iris.exe, 1000 Below, and more, including past collaborative single Van alongside Poppy. The album releases May 31st through Sumerian Records. Additionally, the band dropped The Death of Peace of Mind S.O. Wiley patch. A remix of the title track of the album of the same name, giving us another taste of what to expect on this upcoming release. Producer-composer S.O. Wiley actually posted a remix of the track over a year ago after catching the band's live performance.
That's very neat.
Mm-hmm. And I went back and I watched that TikTok, and it's like cool because they they tagged the band, and it was like literally over a year ago. Yeah, and then
is it like them putting together this entire?
I think yes, hey, so Wiley's like, hey, here's like the idea I had for this. They sort of like do it out on the TikTok, and I can't say if this is like a 1-for-1 match to what they did at the time, but I think that was obviously like the stem of the ideas, and it also got them in front of like Bad Omens to get them included on this release.
Very cool.
Circling back to the Drain, Marcos, Collaborator Health, a 3-piece alternative metal/noise act from LA, are best known per their bio on Spotify, scoring Max Payne 3 from Grand Theft Auto creators Rockstar Games, and collaborative album Disco 4 Part 1, which includes appearances and collaborations with 100 Gex, Ghostmane, Full of Hell, and JPEG Mafia, among others. Their most recent record, Rat Wars, dropped on December 7th of last year. The band's most streamed track at just over 19 million is Major Crimes, a song from the Cyberpunk 2077 Radio Volume 2 original soundtrack, aka OST. The band currently stands at 1.6 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Electronic artists Swarm, per their bio on Spotify, are known for their industrial and cinematic style of EDM, and has had their music featured in, you guessed it, Fortnite and CSI Las Vegas. Swarm currently hover around 114,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Finally, Bad Omens also notched another W in the form of hit single Just Pretend going platinum this week. The band will begin a small run of dates in the Southwest this same week, with support from Invent Anime and Icy Stars. Bad Omens currently claim 5.3 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Marcos, new songs, new albums, fucking platinum singles. Where do you even want to start?
Where to begin? Let's talk about that fucking massive track listing for the deluxe here.
49
Holy
songs.
Fucking shit.
Triple
my
album.
source is saying, Sam, it's going to clock in over 3 hours.
I think it was like, am I crazy? It was like 21 tracks or something like that?
I think it's 26.
Holy fucking shit.
I think it's 26.
Van
is also on this.
It's a lot. And it's not even like it includes all of the Death of Peace of Mind plus new songs. Like, this is all new shit. Granted, some of those new shit is like, acoustic songs, which I'm going to interpret as what they mean when they say unzipped, remixes, and then like tracks that are recharged with features.
10 years old and recharged.
Fucking charged with features.
What was it? Hedonist?
I think it was Hedonist recharged. Yeah. They recharged.
So that's one of the more exciting aspects of this.
It's really exciting.
Bad Omen saying outright, this is a deluxe, essentially, but it's a, like, the whole Concrete Jungle thing, becoming this band's whole thing. This album cycle has been fascinating to watch because it's like it's part of like the lore now, and since this isn't just called Death of Peace of Mind Deluxe, now you can like pull in songs like Hedonist and fuck with them, and it just makes sense. And all of the decisions they're making on this track listing are like, I'm head over heels for, or heels over head. I don't know.
No, head over heels. That's right. You're head over heels.
I'm like, I don't want to just constantly fucking dick ride Bad Omens until we're both sick and tired of it. But like, when is this band ever going to not do something exciting? Because I don't see it happening.
They really do feel like they're at the forefront of pushing the genre forward, which we should be eternally grateful for. And I think they deserve an endless amount of dick riding.
I forget who said it on Twitter. But someone said, like, this must be how people felt when Linkin Park did Reanimation.
Mm-hmm.
And like, honestly, you look at that track listing and it's fucking yes, that is. How could it not be? Like, this is just exciting. Every move this band makes is exciting. I'm thrilled. I'm so happy that, like, we recently discussed on the show, like, hey, is this band even gonna, are they too far removed from this album? Are they even going to bother with the deluxe?
Yeah.
And just when you're starting to predict their next move, you were wrong. Just when they zig, they zag. Fucking, collaborating with Poppy. Like, every move this band makes it feels like the right decision and not the one you would have made.
20 plus tracks gives a little bit of context to that time that elapsed between the deluxe and the release of the album. You know what I mean? Like, suddenly it's starting to make a little bit more sense. It's like, all right, we were wrong.
Right.
Right. We should have never questioned the chef. We should have just let them cook.
Right. You were cooking. You were using the slow roaster or whatever.
That's precisely correct. Marcus, let's circle back to the very beginning of this. The Drain, the brand new single with Health and Swarm. We should, granted the DMCA gods allow it, have a reaction video for that over on our YouTube channel, SOTS Podcast YT, where I'm pretty sure I get 3 key points in this news story incredibly incorrect. So feel free to set everyone straight in the comments for me. Completely animated video. Really, really enjoyed the art style.
Yep. Aesthetic continues to be on point here.
Mm-hmm. Really like the Health and Swarm collaboration, and I like almost, I don't know if this makes sense, but we have what I feel like is the polar opposite of what we got with Van. Van felt like a poppy song with a subtle influence of Bad Omens. To me.
No way.
Well, okay, with the subtle, way.
Nothing subtle about
Fucking
it.
Way.
It's a Bad Omen song.
Fucking way. I say way. I say that by virtue of having Poppy's voice be at the forefront of it, it felt strongly like a Poppy song. This is the alternative. This feels strongly to me by virtue of having Noah Sebastian's voice more strongly like a Bad Omen song where I'm really enjoying the subtle influences of Health and Swarm and what they're bringing to the table.
I know that.
Am I just not explaining myself properly? Is that the problem here?
So I know what you're trying to say. I know the point you're trying to get across. But as far as like, so right, you're saying like if Sleep Token went and released a song that didn't have Vessel on vocals. Yes. Immediately that seems weird. But I really like the challenging of expectations in the sense that like, I like Bad Omens telling me I don't know who Bad Omens are. They can just decide to fucking do whatever they want at some point and be like, yeah, integral part of this band, fuck you, not on this song.
Agreed. Let me rephrase. I guess Van felt like Poppy singing over a Bad Omen song. This feels like Noah Sebastian singing over a Health and Swarm song. Better?
Okay, sure.
Better?
Yeah.
Better?
Well, I mean... and that's what I mean though. It's like at some point like Bad Omens is just also becoming Health and Swarm. Like I don't know what the next Bad Omens song will sound like. You don't know where the Health ends,
the Bad Omens begins, right, and the Swarm finishes. Yeah,
it's so I love the unpredictability of it all. I mean, we talked recently about a band that was extremely predictable, and then you get one that is not, and like I need to like cool down. You know what I'm talking about?
It reinvigorates like your enthusiasm for this.
We've been talking about this. I haven't been able to stop smiling this whole time.
Precisely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so fucking excited for this deluxe album.
That being said, I guess I wasn't as enthralled with the death of Peace of Mind, S.L. Wiley patch. But
I was.
But I did think it was very neat. You liked it as much as The Drain?
I don't know about that. I really also wanted to emphasize how much I liked that and so many of the like production choices. Of
I think
course,
it's neat.
I'm not saying
it's not
vocal layering, specific the pitch correcting and fucking around with like the stuff that Wiley's doing on there is fucking cool, and I really enjoy this song. And it's not just like a a sped up version of this Bad Omen song we all know and love. It's not
a remix, yeah.
Right. It's not just a remix. It feels like a
reinterpretation.
Sure.
Even
I know, but like
an unzipping.
Yeah. I don't like any of these words.
All of it too is like set to this like lo-fi artistic visual on YouTube of just a samurai sharpening their sword the whole time.
Insane.
That is like somehow equally as mesmerizing as what we got with the Drain.
And honestly, especially after listening to that SeeYouSpaceCowboy album,
say what everyone's thinking.
I cannot wait to hear this Iris.exe song. I know it's gonna fucking be the best track on here.
It has to be. Like it's too perfect. The alignment is too perfect.
It's the meme of like is it someone stopping Woody? It's like Buzz Lightyear stopping Woody.
No.
What is it?
It is. Fuck. It is.
So Woody is Poppy?
No, it's not. It's Sora being held back by Woody from Toy Story. Yes, precisely.
Right. So like Sora in this instance is Poppy, and like Woody is Iris.exe.
I just feel like everyone who knows anything about anything sees the name Bad Omens and the name Iris.exe next to each other, and they're like, oh yeah, we're in for peak here.
Right.
We're in for peak.
Someone is about to cook.
But of course, obviously, the second next best thing about this is that 1,000 Below are somehow on this track listing twice. Which is so fucking funny to me.
I love that. I love the little brotherhood here. I cannot wait to see exactly what those songs turn out to be, especially because I believe they are back to back on the track listing.
Mm-hmm.
So fascinating. I'm curious if they
2,000 Below, if you will,
if they do something like insane with them.
Yeah.
If it, like, I don't know. I'm curious. Really curious.
Marcus, I'm chaotic. Memphis May Fire have dropped new single Chaotic.
Addicted to distraction, the chemical reaction. You've only seen a fraction. This is my mind in action.
Vocalist Maddie Mullins on the new track, Chaotic, embodies the visceral urge to stir chaos in our lives as a desperate attempt to drown out the pain of reality. The song embodies the essence of Memphis May Fire, but pushes the boundaries a little, which we love to do. It's the band's first single since 2022 album, Remade in Misery, a massively successful release for the band, as their top most streamed tracks on Spotify are composed entirely of singles from that album, with leader of the pack, Misery, boldly standing at the top with over 25 million streams, while the other four songs, Blood and Water, Make Believe, Bleed Me Dry, and Somebody, sit anywhere from 16 to just under 25 million streams, Marcos. I could not believe how popular these tracks were. The band will be supporting Asking Alexandria on the All My Friends North American tour alongside The Word Alive and Nerve Now. It's actually happening right now. The band currently sits at just under 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's it. That's the story. Sam, you said you're chaotic. I'm neurotic.
And together, that makes us
the only pair of words that rhyme with each other.
Right, that's correct. That's absolutely correct. Okay.
Where do you want to start here?
Fuck,
I mean, we talk a little bit about...
talk about Remade in Misery?
Yeah.
You think about that album a lot? Did you think that album was like this band's most popular record by a fucking like country mile?
I could see it. I could certainly see that.
You know what it feels a little bit to me? It feels a little bit to me like right now, I think a lot of bands in the metalcore scene are experiencing the boom of the genre, in that as long as you're good, you're gonna see like it pay dividends in your streaming numbers. And the thing with Memphis May Fire is, I think they're just a little bit better than the vast majority of the pack. So they've managed to like turn out an album that did pretty much what everybody else was doing a little more consistently than they did it over the course of 12 songs. And it became just like an easy fallback for everyone who's a fan of the current metalcore genre. So I think I can look at Remade in Misery and appreciate that if that's the style of metalcore you're looking for in 2024, which a lot of people are, that is almost like a textbook perfect example of it. Like, it might arguably be flawless in that sense.
How much of their single approach do you think lent itself to the success of this record? Because I'm sitting here thinking, if everything is a single, then Memphis May Fire is essentially saying, consider this for playlisting.
It's almost as if
a month later, consider this for playlisting.
I think it's a fair point.
And at some point one hits.
I think it's a fair
or in
point.
this instance, like 4 or 5 of them do.
I think it's so brilliant that I bet you a label like Rise Records is sitting there looking at a lot of their bands and they're like, hey, you know, go look at
it worked for
Memphis May Fire streaming numbers. They're impressive, right? I have a fantastic idea for a rollout plan for your album. Fantastic idea.
Yeah, and part of me does not like that. But if it leads to the success of these bands, then fuck it, sure.
I don't know. Part of me thinks Memphis May Fire was just ahead of the pack. I also am not a massive fan of hearing 85% of the album. And I think a lot of people also push back on it. You know, we've seen a lot of complaints about Bring Me the Horizon and their EP that they're set to release, having already had like 47 singles over the course of the last 3 years. But I think this is... There's a middle ground here that I think is almost like perfect, right? But it feels to me like Memphis May Fire pushed it a little further than that. And the fact that it works out makes me think that a lot of other bands are going to give it a shot. And I think it really speaks to the release pattern for just about everyone up until like a week ago when we realized that suddenly Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish wants you to listen to whole albums before you hear a single song, which I think is something that they can get away with as massively popular artists, but I don't think quite works with a lot of the bands in our scene.
Right. They can determine what the listener actually wants. Sure.
Right. So I think it's fair to say that what we're going to continue to see within our scene is a lot of bands continue to push the singles game, and Memphis May Fire might be like almost like a textbook case of a perfect rollout, no matter how you felt about it, just based on the streaming numbers.
And that is something I'm looking at when discussing like them moving into their next cycle of like, do they run that back? Do they go back to the 4-5 single method? Just curious.
If I'm them, I run it back. Like, I don't know why you would look at such a successful rollout and approach it any differently.
I agree. How do you feel about Chaotic? It's a Memphis song.
I am in such a like love-hate relationship with the modern radio metalcore scene right now, because for all intents and purposes, I don't really dislike a lot of it. I just like am not really floored by much of it at the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like, yeah, this is pretty catchy, and hey, 2 minutes in when that breakdown hits, they cooked. I'll give them that.
Couple of notes on that breakdown. The breakdown on Chaotic is a textbook example of one of the reasons that Memphis May Fire appealed to me back in the day, and to me it is a very vintage version of this band showing its face again in a way that I really did appreciate. I think it's it anchors the song truly for me, and the song itself, like in totality in general, is this year's Self Hell, in that it's not a great song, but there's moments that are like, okay.
Did you say it's this year's Self Hell?
Yeah, While
Wasn't
She Sleeps,
Self Hell out
last
this year?
No, Self Hell was a single last
Okay,
year.
all right. The album came out this year. Fine.
Well, I mean, every year we get one obnoxious song that, like, in your heart of hearts, you know is not a good song, but it's also the only thing on repeat in your head forever.
It's like it lives sort of like in both, like it's like you acknowledge that it's a very well written song, but at the same time you acknowledge that there's like a level of simplicity to it that almost feels like the cheat code.
Yeah, right. Like the lyrically, this just being, I think I crave chaotic something neurotic. That is bad. But is it stuck in my head? Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, it is.
I think the breakdown saves it a little bit because it does feel slightly more interesting than just about any of the breakdowns we had on like the entirety of the last album.
Yeah, there's some cool production.
Yeah.
That breakdown alone might be the coolest thing I think Memphis has done in a decade, respectfully.
I'm optimistic about what the rest of this album could be. I think that I'm level setting expectations. I do not expect a lot of swings from this band, anything out of the ordinary, but I think there's enough talent here where if they just do what everyone else does a little bit better than them, that will probably be good enough.
Sure.
Left to Suffer have hit us with a new single, Forever, featuring Scary Pool Party. New album Leap of Death releases August 16th and will include previous single Lost in the Dark featuring Paleface Swiss and additional features from Lil Lotus, 1056, and Spite. It follows up 2023 album Feral from last May. The band shared the following on the new single. Quote, "We've taken many sonic gambles when it comes to creating music that describes us as a band. Trial and error, riff after riff, has only led us to molding a sound that is completely ours. Forever is the culmination of years of risk-taking, mixed with Alejandro Aranda's Scary Pool Party supreme talent. This song is a whirlwind of twists and turns and emotions lined with simplicity, but also tasteful in its journey across genres. This is the most risk we have ever taken, yet this is the most honest version of Left to Suffer you've ever received. Scary Pool Party was a former contestant and runner-up on the 17th season of American Idol. Note, this isn't the artist's first foray into the metalcore scene, as they featured on track Euphoria from Silent Planet's 2023 album Super Bloom. Scary Pool Party currently hovers just shy of 130,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Left to Suffer will be on a short headlining tour starting this week in Des Moines, Iowa, with support from Waste. The band currently hold approximately 457,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Yeah. Scary Pool Party.
Scary Pool Party. What a fun stage name.
I think we've arrived.
What
right?
do you mean? In what capacity? In what capacity have we
between
arrived?
Like that feature last year with Silent Planet and this one, I'm ready for everything.
They're fully like they've been inducted into like the metalcore like class.
Like Freshmen's of the Year right now, Iris.exe and now Scary Pool Party.
We deem you seen.
Worthy of, I don't know, worthy.
And also Iris.exe, I feel like has done a lot. Within the scene.
I mean, like,
especially by comparison.
Freshman of the episode. I don't know.
I feel you. Alejandro Aranda is this week's State of the Scene freshman class. I love this new song. I think this is probably my favorite Left to Suffer song since the Kim Dracula single from Feral.
So we liking it more than Lost in the Dark?
I think the style twist is really beneficial in making Left to Suffer stick out amongst the death metal pack. It immediately freshens their sound. It immediately makes them feel a little more unique. And it works so well in in collectively with what Left to Suffer has been doing. Like this doesn't feel like the band did a complete 180 on their sound. It feels like they injected a new element into it and managed to keep things feeling the same way, but also new at the same time.
I do appreciate that this band has sort of like consistently pressed the reset button throughout their short career here. Just when their sound may be getting tired, they throw like a wrench at you, something you don't expect, and then suddenly anything they do next is exciting, right? Until it gets tiring again, and then just in time for the next thing they throw at you.
And this feels like one of the most extreme versions of that, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure, I agree with that.
Marcos, is the scene the best home for former contestants of American Idol and The Voice?
We've got two great examples between Scary Pool Party and, of course, Matt McAndrew, who fronts Rain City Drive somewhere over there, background. And we're two for two. For what it's worth, we are just over a year removed from Daughtry performing a Sleep Token song live in the UK on their tour last year. That's not wrong. I forget Daughtry came up that way.
Daughtry fucks with the scene a little bit. Just a tad. In the same way that a lot of former alt-rock acts kind of fuck with the scene a little bit right now, you know what I mean? Which is why every tour is like POD featuring, you know, like 2 artists from the scene, or like Breaking Benjamin with 2 artists from the scene, so on and so forth. Marcus, I'm really excited about this collaboration. I'm really excited about this album.
Bring it on. I'm ready for that album.
Calva Louise dropped new track Under the Skin. The band announced their signing to Mascot Records alongside the single drop, becoming label mates with Conquer Divide, Oxymorons, and Dragged Under in the process. The new single follows up their album Over the Threshold from December of last year. While based out of the UK, this band boasts members from France, Venezuela, and New Zealand. That's right. We're talking international. We're talking
Have we ever ventured
international? We're still
to Venezuela on the show?
We have not once. Per the press release, the lyrics of Under the Skin follow a complex sci-fi narrative and is the introduction of a conceptual storyline consisting of characters called Travelers and their counterparts called the Doubles. Jess Alonic, who is the songwriter in addition to vocalist and multi-instrumentalist within the band, says, and I quote, "The lyrics deal with the obstacles that arise in the human duality as one is looking for freedom and the other is looking to perpetuate their consciousness, but the expectations are not the same for both sides." The music video is described as follows. The story focuses on one of the doubles, Vic, that betrayed Commander Johnny, also a double, and his crew, composed of both travelers and doubles, after being infected and therefore under the control of a hybrid scorpion that sneaked into Johnny's Hedron ship.
No.
Johnny's plan had been interrupted due to the much-anticipated invasion of the hybrids that kidnapped multiple Hedron ships back in the Mother Hedron ship where their city was built. Meanwhile, the infected doubles began to abandon their counterpart travelers and started to usurp their lives in the holographic real world. The hybrids then got, this actually makes the end of the music video make a lot more sense, by the way. The hybrids then got a free pass to continue sucking the energy of the countless travelers who had been getting trapped in the dream world. End quote, Marcos. The band will kick off a co-headlining tour with Vukovi in North America this May. That will include stints at Welcome to Rockville and Sonic Temple festivals, respectively. Calva Louise currently command 88.5 thousand monthly listeners on Spotify. Marcus, this is the first time we've ever talked about this band on the podcast. I checked out this song because I saw a clip of the music video and I thought visually it was so appealing that, hey, maybe there's something here. And I think I found one of my new favorite bands.
Really?
I just think this is one of the most experimentally interesting, both heavy music, but also heavily electronic influenced artists I've heard in quite some time. This reminds me of Starset, like on steroids. It is on paper the most me band that I've had since the last me band, which was like Imminence a week ago. And as one chapter closes, Marcos, a new one opens, and I have a newfound obsession.
What specifically draws you?
It's the electronic element in particular, Marcos.
Yeah,
and I think it's not only that, but it's the unpredictability of the entirety of the song.
Yep.
I think that so much of what happens in this track is uniquely satisfying and interesting, but never repeated in a way that you continue the entirety of the song craving something while also being fulfilled by something completely different.
Chaotic.
This makes Chaotic look like a fucking children's song. Like a fucking kindergarten's version of music. Like, for me, this is watching an artist cook on like a level of experimentation and brilliance that makes a lot of other artists that might be significantly more popular feel diminished in comparison. When this song went from being this sort of like completely high tempo, punk adjacent post-hardcore song that twisted into this like electronic melody that then converged into a full-on like piano medley.
Thank you.
I was absolutely floored. And while I may not be able to, even with paragraphs of explanation and a 2-minute precursor, understand the narrative of this in any capacity, I always feel that is more of a me problem and did not take away from my enjoyment of this song. I'm coming in and I'm saying it right here. Calva, Louise are next up.
Ooh, freshman of the episode. What I will say is I always appreciate when there is a bit of that lore. Not too much, like not 21 Pilots level, but like this is sort of just enough.
I think that what excites me is this idea that we're building into something bigger, right? So it's not just telling me, hey, anticipate the next song, but it's telling me, hey, anticipate whatever the final product may end up being, whether it's an EP or an album, because we're going to take this larger than life story and we're going to flesh it out completely. Again, on paper, this band is doing Sam things from start to finish. And it's no surprise that I walked away thinking to myself, holy shit, I think I found my next obsession.
Good stuff. Love it.
The Funeral Portrait of dropped new single, You're So Ugly When You Cry, featuring Burt McCracken of The Used. It marks the band's first new single this year and follows up 2023 EP Sounds from Beyond the Abyss Volume 1 from last October. The band speaking on Burt McCracken's inclusion in the song. I never thought in a million years we would send Burt's Team a Song of Ours, just as a last-minute shot in the dark, and he would listen to it, let alone want to feature on it. Then, a few weeks later, I would receive a text from him saying how hyped he was about the song and how it turned out. Most days, I feel like we are outsiders who could never sit at the cool kid table, but then moments like this happen and I realize we are making our very own cool kids table. The band heads out on a headlining tour this week, starting April 24th in St. Paul, Minnesota, and can also be caught later this June at So What Music Festival and this September at Louder Than Life. The Funeral Portrait currently sits at around 166,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Now, we have talked about the Funeral Portrait in
we have
the
indeed.
past.
We have indeed.
Back, like, God, near a decade at this point.
It always blows my mind how long this band has been around, because the way that they've been able to reinvent themselves make them feel like one of the hottest new bands in our scene.
That's certainly the direction I was taking it. It's just cool to see that Funeral Portrait are still around, and that there's more buzz around this band than ever before, and that they sound as good as ever, truthfully.
100%.
And it's really cool seeing, I think it's awesome every time an artist like Funeral Portrait gets to collab with someone who clearly influenced, their entire identity and the songs that they make and things like that. And I think that Burt comes in here and crushes their feature in a way that like Burt's been on like a pretty decent tear recently. I think we had another feature that didn't quite work for me as well recently, but this one we're right back on track with. I like that Burt's here for pretty much the entirety of the song once we're on it, right? Like we're on it and we're there to stay, see it through to the very end. And it's good. It's a really nice song. Video's fairly watchable. This band's just entertaining.
This band does a lot. And you can see it with how they interact with their fans and building this lore sort of around the Funeral Portrait and this like cult aspect.
There's about like 25 seconds of setting the stage for what
right,
you're
they
about to
introduced
see.
this show, which I think is something that they actually do regularly for their fans, which is just sort of them like sharing, hey, stories from the studio or the road or whatever. But they almost introduce this music video as if it's just another episode of that show. But the way that they do it, they almost like explain, oh, there's going to be a special appearance by, one of the most dedicated and devoted.
They call them a political figure.
Yes, they do call them a political figure, which is very fun. And obviously they're talking about Burt McCracken, which is hilarious. And yeah, this band's style of music is they really feel they're leaning into the pop punk era of My Chemical Romance, like think that 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge era, and they do it extremely well. And they do it both well in the sense of the music and the presentation and the aesthetic. So I continue to be very excited about the future of The Funeral Portrait. Marks, finally, last news story here. Banks Arcade have released new single, Self-Help.
Don't stop now, kid, you're wasting daylight. Don't stop now, kid, you're wasting daylight. It's too late to talk, so start yelling. Blow your heart all over the baseline. Fuck that noise, it's just what you wanted.
The new track follows up their EP Death 2 from earlier this February. The track is billed in the presser as a powerfully resounding sonic pivot, and the band shared the following on the song. Self-Help was inspired by a tough time, surrounded in a lot of doubt, and I imagine having a phone call with myself in 30 years to talk about how all this ends. The song is an honest and vulnerable conversation with myself, and it finds resolve in forgetting about outcomes and pursuing what you are called to do, regardless of where it ends up. The band will be headlining the Death to Amuse tour in Australia and New Zealand this May. Banks Arcade currently hold just above 75,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Yeah, a band that Death 2, that EP dropped this year. We've already reviewed this band recently.
It's crazy that we're in the new era, like
I know.
2 months removed from the EP drop. Yeah.
Part of me thinks this band said they might do multiple EPs this year, and you know, if we're already getting another single out, then that's fully possible.
They prepped us for it.
I kind of love specifically how we sell this song, because you can say, like, you know, having a conversation with my future self, but also specifying you 30 years down the road. So it's not like future you could be anyone, could be you next week. I love specifying 30 years, not 29, not 31, 30 years.
Sure.
I just wanted to highlight that because I really appreciated it.
We've always said we appreciate specificities.
And then Self-Help is a really fucking good song in general.
It's just like it Death 2 was incredibly experimental, and I really appreciated it for that reason. But I found that Banks Arcade was on the outset already an experimental band, and what they were doing in particular really spoke to me. So them sort of, in a sense, circling back to the style of music, this almost like sad boy emo pop meets this sort of slightly more aggressive sort of punk rock style, works insanely well for this band. And the way that they preface it with like this fuzzed out acoustic intro just ends up creating something that feels incredibly unique. And by the time you get to like the second running back of that chorus, it's almost like the music swells in a way that's incredibly powerful and uplifting. And I think truly Banks Arcade is just like in this era speaking directly to me, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add here. I think that I still am.
There's like an intense passion that this band communicates so well.
Yeah, I'm always all ears when it comes to Banks Arcade. They've gained a lot of my attention, earned a lot of my attention.
Marcus, just a couple anniversaries and we'll get out of here. Motionless in White released dual singles Brand New Numb and Disguise 5 years ago on April 17th, 2019. That very same day, they announced their brand new album.
Disguise. Okay.
I forgot that they did this. I forgot that they did a dual track release when this dropped. And I remembered afterwards because I was like, oh yeah, because I super did not fuck with Brand New Numb. And I was like, oh, thank God Disguise. The Motionless in White, like not completely lost.
Right. It is funny. That honestly seems to be the case with every dual drop. Like 95% of them will have a song that I really enjoy and a song that I don't really like in any capacity.
Do you think it's intentional? Like you've just stumbled on it? Like they're arguably trying to hit like two different ends of like the fandom when they do that. Like they want to make sure they please everybody, and dropping 2 singles is how they do it.
This scenario could have been getting ahead, doing some damage control straight away, and being like, hey, if you don't like this song, you're going to love this song, and vice versa. I
could be wrong, but it feels like, looking back on this, Disguise is the one that was more of a runaway success than Brand New Numb, and I feel like Brand New Numb
the risk you take. You can write your radio ready song, but it's no guarantee that's going to be the one that takes off on the radio.
Right. That's a fair point. And I look back on these songs, and I guess I still feel the same way. I've warmed to Brand New Numb a little bit more than, no, not at all.
Not me.
Interesting.
I also probably have listened to it a total of 2 or 3 times, and one of them was likely in a live setting since this dropped 5 years ago.
Fair point. Fair. And finally, Marcus Holding Absence released The Greatest Mistake of My Life 3 years ago on April 16th, 2021. A landmark album in that it was our favorite of that year.
Yeah, AOTY of 21. And I don't like that we're already 3 years away from that, because that album almost feels newer than their newest album.
Fair.
In my head.
Fair.
I don't know. Time is fucking warped.
Everything about Holding Absence still feels so new, that the idea that this album is 3 years old, but that their debut is even older,
I know, right?
Hurts. It just hurts. Once again, patreon.com/SOTS podcast if you want to support the show. In the deluxe this week, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about what the fuck is happening with Dance Gavin Dance and what the fuck is happening with Under Oath. So stay tuned for that. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Bye.
Goodbye.